hard-hitting questions coming out of yesterday. You know, I think one of them was whether or not the horns down is going to be 15-yard penalty in the SEC in the future.
That it was very important to finish and to collect the trophy and to win 10 games and win a game on New Year's Day and all those things. And believe me, we had a great belief in our locker room. We didn't have to do anything special, just be us. I was so proud of this team. We had so much fun, it ought to be illegal.
I said in my press conference back in December that I didn't feel like there was anything at South Carolina that we lacked to be a championship program, that we had everything that we needed. I am even more convinced of that now after being there for 7 months.
There's a report in the Houston Chronicle that Texas and Oklahoma are inquiring about joining the SEC.
I bet they would.
War Eagle. Feels good to say that.
All right. I didn't even remember that 12 years ago, but now that you say that, because I believe there was something about someone didn't have Tebowed first team all SEC. And as usual, I was accused of that. So I brought my ballot to show everyone, to show Urban.
Hey, buddy, this beer's for you, Mike, and Cousin Shane. That SEC podcast loves the Pirate, and the Pirate loves that SEC podcast. Hail State.
Welcome in to the latest episode of that SEC podcast. I'm your host, Mike Bredd. I go by SEC Mike on Twitter. And I got a little special show for you guys. I know last week did the all SEC offensive team. Didn't want to leave you hanging. Even though I'm on vacation here in the great state of Utah, probably freezing my ass off. But that being said, I hope nothing huge news drops because I'll be out of the loop. And this podcast will be dated really quick here. But coming at you with my all SEC defensive team. And I think it's a little bit larger than the offensive team because there's just no one on this list that I could leave off. And for the most part, the offensive team, the response has been fantastic. Of course, everybody and their mother wants their players on the list. Didn't make the cut. Tried to alleviate that by adding a couple extra players to this team. Got several linebackers, defensive backs, defensive linemen, of course. So, hey, I'm not going to waste any more time. Just going to get right into it. And again, this is just my opinion, my thoughts here, and I'm really just going for I'm trying to make the best team of SEC defenders that we can make with this season's players. And I've got to start with the defensive line, arguably the most important position in a game of football, the defensive line. And I'm going with Sam Williams from Ole Miss on the defensive end. Sam Williams, second in the SEC with 13 sacks. That's a school record all time. A lot of records being broke this year in Oxford. And Sam Williams and his sacks did it this year. He leads the SEC with 4 forced fumbles. Third in the SEC for tackles with loss with 15. And he had a sack in 9 of his final 12 games to round out the regular season there in Oxford. And you know, when we talk about the turnaround on the defensive side in Oxford this season under DJ Durkin, a lot of it had to do, we can't give it all the credit to Sam Williams, but just having that elite pass rusher off the edge, that is going to make any defense improve overnight. And that's what, Sam Williams becoming one of the best pass rushers here in not only in the SEC, but in the nation, allowed that defense to really take a step up in that right direction. Sam Williams earns his spot on this team. And as conference play got going, as the schedule got more difficult, he stepped up his game. That also played a factor in my decision. Now, we can't talk defensive line without putting the big man, Jordan Davis. Got a lot of Bulldogs on this list, but wanted to go with Jordan Davis first. Cousin Shane's favorite player here in the SEC is a finalist for the Outland, the Bronco Nagursi Trophy, the Chuck Bednarik Award. I mean, any defensive honor, Jordan Davis made the cut this year for his senior season, made the decision to come back. He was key in getting this Georgia defense to, I don't want to say flip the script because they were pretty good last year, but they just weren't to this elite level they're playing at now. I know obviously Alabama torched them, but we'll see. Can they do it in the college football playoff? I would really think that heading into this Michigan game, Georgia's got a lot to prove on the defensive side of the ball after such a tough performance on a national stage. So we'll see Jordan Davis and company, how they respond up against Michigan. Jordan Davis played in all 13 games, 28 tackles, 3.5 for loss, and 2 sacks. He also had a safety, but, big lineman, nose guard type player, cannot really measure his impact with stats. And that's why I always roll my eyes when people would bring up his stats when other Bulldogs wanted Jordan Davis to be honored for the Heisman Trophy. His impact is just on that entire defensive unit is huge. And really, it could have went with a number of Georgia linemen. But for me, Jordan Davis, the defense there all starts with Jordan Davis being that man in the middle and just causing havoc for opposing offensive lines. Now, kicking down to College Station, DeMarvin Leal. Texas A&M Aggies already announced he's going pro. He's going to be probably a first-round pick. Started every game for the Aggies this year. Set a career high in tackles with 58. 12.5 tackles for loss was also a career high, and 8.5 sacks. This guy was a monster. Played all over the defensive front for Mike Elko there in College Station. And again, similar to the Georgia Bulldogs, Texas A&M's defense, their stout defense, it all started with the unit up front, and DeMarvin Leal was the best of the bunch. He's one of the best linemen, not only in the SEC, but in the country. And without him, Texas A&M would not have been near the outstanding unit they were this season. Now, jumping back to Athens, I told you there's going to be a couple Bulldogs on this list. It was really hard to pick. I almost gave the nod to Jalen Carter, Teron Walker. He also had a hell of a season, but I'm giving slight edge DEVONTE, WYATT for them Bulldogs. 34 tackles, tops among interior linemen there in Georgia. 4th on the team with 22 quarterback pressures. He was named SEC Defensive Lineman of the Week after the Arkansas game. And him and Jordan Davis, again, with Jalen Carter, Teron Walker, they're the reason that, or at least a key part of it, why these Georgia defenses being touted by many as the best of the best, maybe of all time. Of course, that reputation, again, I understand, took a hit there against Alabama in the SEC championship game, but if they find a way to bounce back and suffocate Michigan and they answer the challenge, whether it be Cincinnati or it's not going to be Cincinnati, Alabama, the national championship, they will reclaim their status as an all-time defense. It's all right there in front of them. They just got to seize that momentum. Now, speaking of Alabama, how can we do a defensive all-SEC defense and not have Will Anderson Jr. on the list? Maybe the most dominant player in the entire country on either side of the ball this season there for the Crimson Tide. Led the nation, 16 sacks, led the nation, 30.5 tackles for loss, finalist for the Bednarik Award and the Nagurski Trophy, SEC Defensive Player of the Week after the Florida game, the Ole Miss game, the Mississippi State game, the LSU game, and Auburn. Woo! Will Anderson Jr., he's got to be your SEC Defensive Player of the Year. If he's not your vote, you should probably have your vote taken away from you. And, he even had an impact there in the SEC championship, just basically unblockable force there for the Crimson Tide. He's been getting it done all season. Will Anderson, if they were going to give a captain to this team I'm announcing here, it would go to Will Anderson Jr. Now, not far behind, though, Damone Clark, LSU, led the nation 136 tackles, 16 more than the closest guy there. Finalist for the Butkus Award, 19 tackles for Ole Miss, 9.5 tackles for loss, 3 sacks. Defensive Player of the Week, SEC Defensive Player of the Week after the Mississippi State game. Of course, wore the number 18 for LSU, and I realized the Tigers didn't have the season many, myself included, thought they were going to have this season, but you cannot put that on Damone Clark. He was outstanding. He's going to be an All-American. He's one of the best linebackers here in the country, and just time and time again, he answered the bell. Even in bad losses like Kentucky, he had a hell of a game. He just literally did not take a game off this season. And this came after some LSU fans wanted to never see Clark see the field again. He's back. He's a team leader, team captain for the LSU Tigers. He's a key reason that the Tigers are going to bowl him, because they got leaders like this that didn't allow the rest of the roster to give up on the season. Came up huge late down the stretch, including that Texas A&M game. So for me, Damone Clark, no question, got to be on this list. Now, going back to Georgia, I told you a lot of dogs on this list. Linebacker NAKOBE Dean from Georgia won the Butkus Award, given to the nation's top linebacker, semifinalist for the Chuck Bednarik Award, and he led Georgia in tackles for loss, tied for the team lead with 5 sacks. He was just all over the field. And I know some of his statistics don't quite match up. I saw LSU fans were pissed that Dean won the Butkus Award over Clark. And if you look at the stats, I would understand your frustration. But here's the thing with Georgia's defense. I mean, they're so damn good that they're able to rotate players in and out. They just don't have always the gaudy statistics, particularly this unit the last 2 seasons, because they've been able to keep so many guys fresh. So you can't just clearly go off statistics. You got to look at how dominant a player is, how much of an impact they make when they're in the football game. And NAKOBE Dean, of all the Georgia linebackers, hell, we could have named probably 3 or 4 more to this list. But in my mind, NAKOBE Dean's the best of the bunch, and it's a reason he won the Butkus Award, because he's one of the best, if not the best, inside linebacker in the country. Now, could not include this guy on the list here. Grant Morgan, Arkansas, just what a career he's had there in Fayetteville. 96 tackles, interception, Campbell Trophy finalist. That goes to, it's basically the academic Heisman, a Burlsworth Trophy finalist for the 2nd year in a row, hoping to keep that trophy there in the great state of Arkansas this season. Team captain. You know, honestly, could have really gone with any of the Arkansas linebackers. Hayden Henry, Grant Morgan, Bumper Pool, all of them outstanding production, but only a spot for one of these guys in my mind on this type of an elite list, and I'm giving it to Grant Morgan, who just, you know, at the end of the day, heart and soul of his defense and everything that Sam Pittman is trying to epitomize there on the hill there in Fayetteville, Grant Morgan does. Came back as a super senior, could have went on to the NFL, wanted to come back and take part in this epic turnaround we've seen at Arkansas, and he is going to be one hell of a tough player to replace. You may not be able to find another Grant Morgan there for a long, long time for the University of Arkansas. Now, one other guy, had to put him on the list here because I think he's had such a great year at the linebacker position. ZAKOBY McClain for Auburn. He's a lot impact quarterfinalist, SEC Defensive Player of the Week after Ole Miss. He had 89 tackles for Auburn this year, and he's with a strong bowl performance. He could become the first Auburn player with 100-plus tackles in back-to-back seasons since Takeo Spikes back in 1996, 1997. I know Auburn didn't have the year that they wanted to have, but you can't put that on ZAKOBY McClain. He has been one of the most outstanding defenders here in the SEC West this season, and without him, Auburn would have been in a world of hurt, and we saw that with some of these. I think it was the bogus targeting call against Penn State got tossed out. I mean, just garbage like that, but it really had a huge impact, I thought, on that Auburn defense, not having a player of his caliber on the field when it mattered most. And, you hate to see stuff like that, but it also gives you just further evidence that McClain is just an elite defender there for the Auburn Tigers. All right, jumping to the secondary, I got Emmanuel Forbes, Mississippi State, as one of the corners here. Nation's active leader with 3 pick sixes. SEC active leader with 8 interceptions. 3 more this season. Led Mississippi State in solo tackles. Emmanuel Forbes, a little bit, he can do it all. He can cover. He can tackle. Just a really, really solid player here. And hell, he's got, they've got a elite tandem there with Forbes and Emerson there in Starkville. 2 of the most underrated players in the country. 2 of the best defensive backs in the SEC, but slight edge go to Forbes with his playmaking ability. Once he gets that ball in his hands, he is just a nightmare matchup for SEC receivers. And I wanted to show Mississippi State's the guy that I think is their top corner, Forbes. Give him a little love, put him on this list. All right, jumping back to Auburn, Roger McCreary. Auburn, he had a tough Iron Bowl. We'll give him that. I mean, John Benchy kind of had his way with him, but one game does not define your season, and Roger McCreary had a good one for Auburn. Led the SEC in pass breakups, semifinalist for the Chuck Bednarik Award, 34 career pass breaks up. He had a pick 6 this year, 2 interceptions. Really good corner for the Auburn Tigers. Again, I know you're not going to have your A game every time. And they could have used one or two more stops there in the Iron Bowl. But even looking beyond that, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a more experienced and talented corner in the SEC right now than Roger McCreary there for the Auburn Tigers. Now, I'm added a nickelback on this list just because of how important that position has become to the college football game. And one guy stands out to me as the SEC's best this season, and it's Antonio Johnson for Texas A&M, the sophomore. 79 tackles, second on the team. He had an interception, third on the team with 5 pass breakups. He had 15 tackles against Mississippi State, 11 tackles, 2.5 for a loss against Ole Miss. I mean, he stepped up in a lot of these SEC games that, I just mentioned 2 games the Aggies lost, but you can't put that on the defense, can't put that on Johnson. He showed up, and this is his first year being a starter. He started every game for the Aggies. And that nickel spot it's a difficult spot to play. You got to be a rare athlete. You got to be able to stick your nose in there, get the tough tackles like Johnson does. Got to be able to play the pass, obviously. And he's the best I think that I've seen this year that can kind of play at both. He's a wrecking ball back there in the secondary for Texas A&M, and with Leal off to the NFL, I think next year possibly the best defender in College Station is going to be Antonio Johnson. Now, jumping back to Tuscaloosa, got to put Jordan Battle on this list. 69 tackles, third on the team, 3 interceptions, including 2 pick sixes, including, of course, the one in the SEC championship that sealed the deal for the Tide. And the coaches named him Player of the Week after Ole Miss, Mississippi State, LSU, New Mexico State, and Auburn. I mean, how could we keep a guy like that off the list? We all know how difficult it is to play defensive back for Nick Saban. He demands excellence, and Jordan Battle essentially gave that to him. And Jordan Battle gave that to him this year in Tuscaloosa. Give me Jordan Battle back there at one of the safety spots, and I know we're good to go on that side of the ball. So Jordan Battle is making the list. The other standout safety from that SEC championship game, Lewis Seen, assembly finalist for the Jim Thorpe Award, tied for the team lead in tackles, and he also had 8 pass breakups for them Georgia Bulldogs. And I don't know if Lewis Seen gets enough credit for being the elite defensive back. He is, but Georgia really does, at all 3 levels of their defense, have standout defenders, and Lewis Seen is the best on the back end, if you ask me. And then last but not least, didn't want to not have this guy on the list. Going to have one more safety, JAYLAN Foster, South Carolina Gamecocks, 86 tackles, 13 against Tennessee. My goodness. Tied for the NCAA lead with 5 interceptions. He's a semifinalist for the Jim Thorpe Award. We got to credit Foster, who little-known prospect coming out of high school. I think he was a 2-star, maybe a walk. I don't think he was a walk-on, but I think he came up from a smaller school. And credit Clayton White and his defense for night and day transformation, because I don't need to tell Gamecock fans, but their defense was just atrocious there in 2020. Now they're the strength of the football team, and a lot of that starts with JAYLAN Foster. I know the Gamecocks have a solid defensive line as well, but JAYLAN Foster's been stepping up, making plays all season long, even against the toughest competition the Gamecocks have faced. So you got to have JAYLAN Foster on a list like this. All right, so hey, that's all I got on this episode. Again, I'm on vacation here, so just wanted to give you guys a little bit, just wanted to complete my all-SEC list here, given the opportunity. Threw this out in the middle of the week, and we hope to be back. Hopefully nothing huge, major breaking news is happening. I'll take a mic in case there is, but I don't know if I'll be able to get a pod up while I'm away at Utah. We'll be back for National Signing Day, or I guess it's the early signing period, which has really become the National Signing Day. We'll be back for that, recapping all that action. And so that's all I got. Hope you guys appreciated this little midweek vacation pod. But I'm going to jump off here, get back to the vacation here in Antarctica. Catch you on the next one.